My name is Zoey Marshall. I am 27 years old, and this is my true story. This really happened to me, and it completely changed my life. I once trusted someone deeply, but what they did to me was so shocking, so terrifying that I'm still haunted by. Today I want you to know how betrayal can come from the people you love the most. What started as something small soon turned into a nightmare. I never imagined. If you really want to know how it all happened, then stay with me till the very end. Because my story will leave you speechless, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, this story is written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries. I had just started a new job at a marketing firm in Chicago, a dream position I'd worked years to secure, and like anyone beginning a new chapter of their career, I was both nervous and excited, eager to prove myself, eager to belong. That's when I met her, Claire Anderson, my coworker, who at first seemed like the kind of person you'd be lucky to sit next to in an office full of strangers. She was confident, well-dressed, sharp with her words, but always smiling. And she had this charm that made people gravitate toward her. On my very first day, she took me out for coffee, told me who was who in the office, and even gave me advice on how to impress the boss. I thought I had found not only a mentor, but possibly a real friend, someone who understood me in a place where I knew no one else. But the strange thing about trust is that it can blind you, and I didn't realize that the very person guiding me would soon become my greatest nightmare. At first, everything seemed perfect. Claire included me in meetings, praised my work publicly, and even defended me when others tried to undermine my ideas. But as weeks passed, I began to notice small cracks, subtle things I brushed off as coincidences. My reports would go missing right before deadlines. Presentations I had worked on tirelessly would somehow end up in Claire's hands with her name at the top, and whenever I tried to question it, she would laugh it off, saying it must have been a mix-up. I wanted to believe her. After all, she was the only person I felt close to at work. But then things escalated. People started looking at me differently, whispering when I walked by. My manager's tone turned cold, and suddenly I was being called into private meetings where I was accused of mistakes I knew I hadn't made. Claire would sit there in the corner during those meetings, her sympathetic face masking something darker, something crueler. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was pulling strings behind my back, setting me up piece by piece, and the more I tried to defend myself, the guiltier I looked, the strangest part was how she kept acting like my friend outside of work, inviting me out for drinks, asking about my family, even buying me small gifts. It was confusing, like she wanted me close just to keep control over me, and deep down I started to feel like I was trapped in some twisted game where she held all the power. The real breaking point came one evening when I stayed late at the office to finish a project. Everyone had gone home. The halls were dark and quiet, and as I packed my bag, I heard the faint sound of a printer running in the copy room. Curious, I walked over, and to my horror, I found documents with my name on them, but altered, full of errors, sloppy graphs, and misquotes, all things I would never produce. And at the top of the stack was Claire's handwriting, notes and instructions, as if she was building a case against me. My heart raced, my hands shook, and I knew then that this wasn't paranoia, it was real. She was trying to destroy me. But just as I reached for the papers, the lights flickered, and I heard footsteps behind me. I froze, clutching the stack to my chest, and when I turned around, Claire was standing in the doorway, her smile gone, her eyes dark and unblinking, and for the first time I saw her without the mask of friendliness. "Zoey," she whispered, her voice low and chilling. "You really shouldn't be here this late." My blood ran cold as I realized I wasn't safe anymore, not in that office, not around her, maybe not even in my own life. And that was just the beginning of the nightmare she had planned for me. After that night in the office, I couldn't sleep, my mind replaying the image of Claire standing in the doorway, her shadow stretching long across the dimly lit floor, her eyes fixed on me like a predator who had finally cornered her prey. And though she said nothing else after those chilling words, the silence was even worse because it made me realize she wasn't just sabotaging my career, she was watching me, measuring my reactions, waiting for me to make a mistake. And I felt trapped, not knowing whether to confront her, report her, or pretend nothing had happened. The next morning she acted like nothing was wrong, greeting me cheerfully with a cup of coffee, asking if I got home safe. And for a moment I doubted myself, wondered if exhaustion had twisted my perception. But then when I opened my email, I saw another fabricated mistake pinned on me, a file sent to a client with broken links and missing attachments. And the timestamp showed it was sent at midnight, hours after I left, which meant someone had used my account, and there was only one person who had access to my computer. Claire. My attempts to explain it to my manager fell flat. He looked at me with tired eyes, disappointment heavy in his tone, and I realized Claire had already poisoned him against me, planting seeds of incompetence that were now taking root slowly. I began to isolate myself, avoiding after-work gatherings where she shined. Prior to spending my lunches alone, but no matter how much distance I tried to create, Claire always found a way back and slipping little notes into my desk drawer like, "You should really be more careful or people are watching," or sending me texts late at night saying she hoped I was getting enough rest, messages that on the surface seemed caring but underneath carried a sinister edge that made my skin crawl. I started double-checking the locks on my apartment, pulling the curtains tight because I couldn't shake the feeling she wasn't just interfering at work. She was bleeding into my personal life, and when I found my front door slightly ajar one evening, nothing stolen, but a framed photo of me and my sister missing from the shelf, my stomach dropped. This was no longer about competition. It was personal. My friends noticed I was withdrawing. My parents worried over the phone when hell. I told them vague excuses, but how could I explain that my own coworker had invaded every corner of my life, weaving a web so carefully that even I sometimes questioned whether I was losing my grip on reality? But the breaking point came one Friday night when the office held a mandatory late presentation for a new client. Everyone gathered in the conference room, lights dimmed, projector glowing, and as the slides advanced, my name appeared under a section of work, riddled with grotesque errors, the kind that would humiliate anyone in front of their peers. Gasps filled the room. The client's face darkened, and I felt heat rush to my cheeks, my body trembling as the room spun around me. But when I turned my head, I saw Claire at the back of the room, her lips curling ever so slightly into a smile, her eyes glinting with satisfaction. Something inside me snapped that night, a mix of rage and terror, and I knew I couldn't just sit back and let her dismantle me piece by piece. After the meeting, I followed her out, my fists clenched, my voice shaking as I demanded to know why she was doing this to me. She tilted her head, gave me a look that was almost pitying, and whispered, "Because you don't deserve this life, Zoey. You don't even realize how lucky you are, and I'm going to take it from you until you finally see." Her words cut deeper than any betrayal, and before I could respond, she walked away, leaving me in the parking lot under the flickering streetlight, shivering not just from the cold, but from the realization that her obsession wasn't about work at all. It was about me. From that night on, strange things started happening more often. Phone calls with no one on the line. Footsteps in the office when I stayed late, the faint scent of Claire's perfume lingering in the elevator even when she wasn't there. I tried to gather evidence, keeping copies of the altered documents, saving her cryptic notes, but each time I thought I had proof, it vanished, as if she knew my every move, as if she was always one step ahead. I started questioning whether I was being paranoid, but then came the night I returned to my apartment to find the missing photo of my sister taped to my bathroom mirror, the glass cracked down the middle with the words, "She can't help you," scrawled in red marker. Beneath it, my scream echoed through the walls. My neighbors knocked to ask if I was okay, but I couldn't tell them, couldn't explain the depth of the nightmare I was living, and as I sat on the bathroom floor shaking, I realized Claire wasn't going to stop until she had completely destroyed me, and maybe even worse. That's when I made a decision. If she wanted a war, I would give her one. But what I didn't know was that stepping up to fight her would drag me into a darkness far more twisted than I ever imagined. The night I found that cracked photo taped to my bathroom mirror was the night I promised myself I wouldn't let Claire win, because if I allowed her to keep pushing, she would strip me of everything: my job, my friends, my family, my sanity, until there was nothing left of Zoey Marshall, and I couldn't stand the thought of being erased by her hands. I started documenting everything in secret, buying a small hidden camera for my desk drawer, backing up files to a personal cloud account Claire couldn't reach, keeping a notebook with dates, times, and every strange occurrence, from the phantom emails to the unexplained noises in my apartment at night. At first it felt empowering, like I was finally gaining some control, but the deeper I went, the more I realized she was already 5 steps ahead of me. One morning I came into the office to find my hidden camera missing, the drawer slightly ajar as if someone had deliberately taunted me, and when I opened my notebook at lunch, several pages had been ripped out, leaving jagged edges like teeth marks, and scrawled across the remaining page in ink so dark it bled through was a single word: "Stop." My hand shook as I shut the notebook, my stomach twisting with dread, but something inside me hardened too, because that word wasn't just a warning, it was a dare, and I wasn't about to back down. I began digging into Claire's background, quietly asking casual questions around the office, searching her name online, piecing together fragments of her past that painted a picture I hadn't expected. She had worked at 3 different firms before ours each time, leaving suddenly, always after someone else's. Mysterious downfall, an employee fired for fraud, another for harassment, one who even had a nervous breakdown. None of it was pinned on Claire, of course, but the pattern was too sharp to ignore, like a predator moving from place to place, leaving behind broken bodies and careers feeding on ruin. When I confronted HR with my suspicions, they brushed me off. Said I had no evidence that Claire was one of the company's most valued employees, and the way they looked at me made me realize she'd already woven her charm into them too. I felt alone, cornered, but then something happened that shifted the ground beneath me. Late one night, scrolling through old news articles, I found a tiny piece about a woman who used to work with Claire, someone who had accused her of harassment and manipulation, but whose claims had been dismissed as baseless. That woman's name was Dana, and I tracked her down on social media, sent her a desperate message, and to my surprise, she replied. When we finally spoke, her voice was brittle, shaky, but full of truths I already feared. Claire had destroyed her too, turned her co-workers against her, planted false evidence, and left her career in ruins. Dana warned me that Claire didn't just want to win, she wanted to own people, to crush them until they couldn't stand again. Hearing it confirmed what I already knew. In my gut, this wasn't just professional rivalry, it was obsession, and Claire had chosen me as her latest victim. I tried to keep our conversation secret, but Claire must have sensed something, because the more I dug into her past, the more aggressive she became. Anonymous calls rang through the night, sometimes with nothing but breathing, sometimes with whispered phrases like, "You'll never escape me." My apartment door was scratched with deep gouges one morning, as though someone had taken a knife to it, and when I asked my landlord about the security cameras, he told me the footage from that night had been mysteriously erased. Every move I made she countered, every step forward she dragged me 2 steps back, and I started to wonder if fighting her only made me sink deeper into her trap. But the moment that truly broke me was when my sister called, terrified, saying someone had been watching her outside her college dorm, a woman who matched Claire's description perfectly. My blood ran cold, rage and fear knotting together in my chest, because it was no longer just about me. She was targeting the people I loved, and that was something I couldn't forgive. I swore then and there I would end this, that I would not let Claire take another piece of me or my family. I started planning carefully, methodically, making sure to hide my tracks, because if I was going to beat her, I would have to become as calculating as she was. But just when I thought I had finally built a strategy strong enough to trap her, something happened that I didn't see coming. An email landed in my inbox with no sender address, no subject line, only an attachment. Against my better judgment, I opened it, and there on the screen was a video file, grainy but clear enough to send shivers through my entire body. It was footage of me asleep in my own bed, the camera angle from inside my bedroom showing me tossing, turning, oblivious. And then, slowly, a figure appeared in the corner of the frame, leaning over me, her face barely illuminated but unmistakable. Claire. She had been inside my home, standing over me while I slept, and she wanted me to know it. My scream echoed in the empty room as I slammed my laptop shut, tears burning my eyes, because there was no denying it anymore. Claire wasn't just after my job, my reputation, or even my sanity. She was after me, body and soul, and unless I found a way to stop her, I knew she wouldn't stop until I was gone forever. The moment I saw that video of Claire standing over me while I slept, something inside me shattered, because it wasn't just proof of her obsession, it was proof of how powerless I truly was, how close she had come to me without my knowledge, how deep she was willing to sink to claim victory over my life. I couldn't stop shaking, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold my phone as I called the police. But when they came and searched my apartment, they found nothing. No camera, no signs of forced entry, nothing but my word and the shaky video file that, when I tried to open it again, was mysteriously corrupted, unplayable, as if she had reached into my laptop and erased it herself. The officers gave me polite, skeptical looks, asked if I'd been under stress, and when I tried to explain, their faces tightened into the same doubtful expression my boss and coworkers had worn for months. Claire had already made sure no one would believe me. That night I didn't sleep, sitting in the dark with a kitchen knife clutched in my hand, every creak of the floorboards making my heart lurch, every shadow stretching too long across the walls. I kept hearing her voice in my head, whispering that I didn't deserve this life, that she would take it from me. By dawn, I realized I couldn't wait for help. No one was coming, no one was going to save me. If I wanted to survive, I had to end this myself. I reached out to Dana again, and together we built a plan. I would lure Claire into exposing herself, recording her confession, or catching her in the act, something undeniable that would destroy the mask she wore so perfectly. It took days of careful preparation, planting bait in emails that suggested I was finally breaking, leaving my apartment unlocked, just Enough to tempt her pretending to spiral so she would take the final step, and she did. One night I returned home heart pounding knowing Dana was waiting in a car nearby with her phone recording while I set up hidden cameras throughout my apartment. I left the lights dim, sat on the couch with a glass of wine I barely touched, pretending to drift into sleep. Hours passed in silence, and I nearly convinced myself it wouldn't work until I heard the soft creak of my door opening, the faintest whisper of footsteps sliding across the floor, and my breath caught as I kept my eyes half closed, my body rigid with terror as the air grew heavy with the scent of her perfume. Slowly she appeared in the doorway of my living room, her silhouette sharp against the glow of the city lights outside, and for the first time I saw her without her corporate mask, her face twisted with hunger, her eyes alive with a feverish light that sent chills down my spine. She moved closer, crouched near me, her hand reaching out as if to touch my face, and in that moment I snapped my eyes open and whispered, "Got you." The cameras clicked alive. Dana burst in with her phone raised, and Claire froze, her expression morphing from shock to fury in a single heartbeat. She lunged at me with a strength I didn't know she had, her nails scraping across my skin as we struggled, crashing into the coffee table, shattering glass. Dana screamed, recording everything as I fought with every ounce of strength left in me, until finally, with a desperate shove, I knocked Claire backward into the wall. For a moment she just stood there, her chest heaving, her eyes locked on mine with a hatred so pure it burned, and then she smiled, that same smile she wore in the office, charming and cruel all at once, and whispered, "This isn't over." But it was. Police stormed in minutes later, alerted by Dana, and this time they couldn't ignore the evidence. The recordings, the notes, the video of her breaking in. Claire was arrested, screaming my name as they dragged her away, her voice echoing down the hallway like a curse I couldn't shake. In the weeks that followed, my life slowly began to piece itself back together. The office apologized, my boss reinstated my projects. My sister felt safe again, and Dana and I became each other's anchors, survivors bound by the scars Claire had left behind. But even now, even with her locked away, I still wake some nights to the faint sound of footsteps in my apartment, the memory of her shadow bending across the walls, her whisper slithering into my ear. Maybe it's just trauma, maybe it's just my mind playing tricks, or maybe it's her waiting, watching, biding her time until she can slip back into my life once more. Because if I learned anything through this nightmare, it's that evil doesn't always vanish when the door slams shut. Sometimes it lingers, patient and hungry, waiting for the moment you finally let your guard down. Thanks for watching and listening to my story. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more, written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries.